Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
All right, everyone, get ready, because today we're diving deep into the world of some seriously unsung heroes in your body. You ready? We're talking about hepatic stellate cells.
Hepatic stellate cells.
Yeah. For years, scientists, they kind of thought these cells were just troublemakers, mainly involved in causing liver scarring. But
Right.
a groundbreaking new study is totally changing everything we thought we knew about these little guys.
Yeah, it's a huge shift in our understanding. The study showing that these cells, these hepatic stellate cells, they're not just passive bystanders. They're totally essential for a healthy liver.
It's wild.
Yeah, and actually, they might be a key to unlocking new treatments for all sorts of liver diseases, and that's really exciting, especially with the rise of metabolic liver disease that we're seeing.
Okay, so we've got two sources for this deep dive. We've got a scientific paper, and this thing is so fresh, it's practically still warm from the printer.
Oh.
And then we've got a health news article that breaks down the key findings, for us regular folks.
Nice.
Both of these are focusing on this incredible discovery about the role of hepatic stellate cells in liver health.
Right.
Okay, so the scientific paper, it's called Hepatic Stellate Cells Control Liver Zonation, Size, and Functions via R-spondin 3. And it really dives deep into the homeostatic functions of these cells, like how they help maintain a stable, healthy liver environment.
It's really fascinating work.
So get this, the researchers use some really cutting-edge genetic tools to precisely manipulate these cells in mice.
Wow.
And what they found was when you deplete these hepatic stellate cells, the liver, get this, it shrinks.
Really?
Not just a little bit. We're talking smaller livers, smaller liver cells. Those are called hepatocytes. The whole thing just gets smaller.
Yeah, that's right. And the effects, they actually go way beyond just the size, The study also found that the liver's ability to regenerate after injury was significantly impaired without these cells. Oh, wow.
It's like they're the liver's own little repair crew.
Right.
And without them, without that crew, things just start falling apart.
So we're talking liver shrinkage and impaired regeneration.
Uh-huh.
This is sounding serious.
It is. And there's another layer to this that's even more intriguing. So the liver, it's not just one big blob of tissue.
Okay.
It actually has distinct metabolic zones.
Interesting.
It's like different neighborhoods.
Okay.
Each one is specialized for different functions. And guess what? These hepatic stellate cells, they're critical for maintaining these zones.
Wait, seriously. The liver has different zones. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Okay, but if these zones are so important, what happens if you mess with them?
Well, that's exactly what the researchers wanted to find out, and the results were really pretty striking. So when they disrupted these hepatic stellate cells, the boundaries between these zones shifted dramatically.
Well, it's imagine your liver is like a city, right, with carefully planned districts. You've got industry, commerce, and residential areas, and then all of a sudden, those boundaries, they get all blurred.
Oh, no.
And everything gets thrown into chaos.
Yeah.
And that's basically what's happening in the liver when these cells aren't functioning properly.
So we've got shrunken livers, we've got impaired regeneration, we've got zones gone wild. This is like the liver's having a total meltdown.
It is.
But how are hepatic stellate cells exerting all this control? What's their secret weapon?
Well, the study points to a signaling molecule. It's called R-spondin 3.
Okay.
RSPO3 for short. You can think of it like it's the liver zoning commissioner, making sure that each zone knows its job and does its job.
Right.
And when these hepatic stellate cells become activated, as they often do during disease, their production of this RSPO3 decreases, which seems to just throw everything off.
So lower RSPO3, bad news.
Yeah.
So does that mean we should all be popping RSPO3 supplements now?
Whoa, hold on. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. While this research is incredibly promising, we need to remember this study was conducted in mice.
Right.
More research is needed to confirm these findings in humans and to understand fully all the complexities of this RSPO3 signaling before we start talking about treatments.
Okay, right. Of course, mice aren't tiny humans.
Right.
But this RSPO3 molecule, this seems like a really big deal. What can you tell me about it?
Well, what's really fascinating is that RSPO3 isn't unique to the liver. Similar signaling molecules have been found in other organs, like the gut, And they also play a crucial role in maintaining healthy tissue function and regeneration.
Wow.
So this points to a much, much broader mechanism at play, which is really exciting, from a scientific perspective.
Yeah, it's like these tiny molecules are the unsung heroes of our organs. They're working behind the scenes to keep everything running smoothly, and we're just now starting to understand their power.
Yeah.
This is incredible stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And this new understanding of hepatic stellate cells and this RSPO3, this opens up a whole world of possibilities for treating liver disease because, current therapies often fall short, especially in the later stages.
Right.
And this research is offering us a potential new avenue for intervention.
Wow. Well, this is definitely giving me a whole new appreciation for my liver and all those amazing cells working hard in there.
Me too.
But I am also curious about what this health news article has to say about all of this. Does it shed any light on how this research might translate to real-world treatments?
It does. And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive. So this health news article, it does a really great job of putting all this research into context, for us. And it highlights just how urgent the need is for these new treatments for metabolic liver disease. It's becoming increasingly common and sadly existing therapies, they're often not enough, especially as the disease progresses.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and he's really into, health and fitness, and he was telling me all about how he's trying to avoid like fatty liver disease. And I was like, wait, isn't that something that only happens to people who, I don't know, I thought it was people who really overindulge.
Yeah. It's a common misconception, but the truth is that this metabolic liver disease, it's becoming much more prevalent, even among people who might consider themselves relatively healthy.
Right.
And as this article points out, when the disease progresses and scarring takes over, it becomes even harder to treat.
So we're talking about a situation where like lifestyle changes alone, they might not be enough. This research on hepatic stellate cells and R-spondin 3, is this offering a glimmer of hope for like a different approach?
Exactly, yeah. The article actually quotes Dr. Schwab. He's the senior author of that scientific paper, and he points out that a lot of the current drugs for metabolic liver disease, they mainly focus on the metabolic problems.
Okay.
But this approach, it becomes less effective when fibrosis becomes the dominant issue.
Oh, so it's like trying to fix a leaky faucet when the whole house is flooding, right? You've got to address like the root cause and the damage it's causing.
Precisely, yeah. And this research on hepatic stellate cells, it suggests that targeting this R-spondin 3, that could be the key.
Okay.
If we can find ways to boost those R-spondin 3 levels, or maybe even help those hepatic stellate cells return to their quiet, inactive state, it could potentially address both the metabolic dysfunction and the fibrosis.
Now I'm no liver expert, but messing with these delicate zones, that sounds kind of risky. What if we accidentally like disrupt the whole system even further?
Yeah, I mean that's a valid concern for sure, and it's definitely something that researchers are going to have to investigate very carefully. Remember, this is still early stage research, but this idea of targeting R-spondin 3 as a way to restore the liver's natural balance, it's incredibly compelling, and it's a much more nuanced approach compared to simply trying to eliminate those activated hepatic stellate cells, which is what a lot of the current therapies aim to do.
Right. So instead of like going in with a sledgehammer, we're talking about more like delicate, targeted approach.
Right.
Like the difference between trying to, weed a garden by pulling everything up or carefully pruning the plants to encourage healthy growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy. And the potential benefits of this kind of targeted approach are huge. I mean, imagine being able to treat liver disease by restoring the liver's own self-regulating mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal.
That sounds almost too good to be true. But then again, that's what scientific breakthroughs are all about, right?
Yeah.
Discovering new possibilities and pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
Absolutely, yeah. And this research is a perfect example of that, It's challenging our assumptions about the role of hepatic stellate cells. It's revealing their like hidden superpowers, and it's opening up this whole new avenue for developing therapies.
This is why I love science.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving. There's always something new to learn.
Right.
But let's not get too carried away just yet.
Yeah.
This research was done in mice.
Right.
What are the next steps in terms of figuring out if this could actually work in humans?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we need to see if these findings actually hold true in humans. There are key differences between mice and humans, and what works in a mouse model, it doesn't always translate directly to, human therapies.
Right, of course, of
Yeah.
course. But if it does pan out, this could be huge, right?
The implications are enormous. We're talking about a potential paradigm shift in how we approach treating liver disease, moving away from simply managing the symptoms to actually restoring the liver's natural function.
That would be incredible. But I am curious, what would be the next steps in terms of developing actual treatments based on this research? Would it be like some kind of gene therapy to boost R-spondin 3 production,
Right.
or maybe a drug that mimics its effects?
I mean, those are definitely possibilities, but it's still too early to say which approach would be, the most effective. There's a lot more research to be done to understand exactly how R-spondin 3 signaling works and how to manipulate it, safely and effectively in humans.
So it's a long road ahead, but the potential is certainly there. It's amazing to think that something as tiny as a signaling molecule could hold the key to treating such a complex and debilitating disease.
Yeah, and it all comes back to these amazing hepatic stellate cells, They're they're the unsung heroes of the liver, and now we're finally starting to appreciate their true power.
So let's recap what we've learned so far. We started by talking about the alarming rise of metabolic liver disease,
Yeah.
and the limitations of current therapies. Then we dove into this groundbreaking research that reveals a whole new understanding of these hepatic stellate cells and their crucial role in maintaining a healthy liver. We learned about R-spondin 3, the signaling molecule that seems to be the key to their power, and how targeting this pathway could lead to new and more effective treatments. We also talked about the importance of this health news article in providing context and highlighting those real-world implications of this research.
It's been a fascinating journey so far, hasn't it? We've gone from fearing a looming liver disease crisis to glimpsing a potential path towards a healthier future. But what I find most exciting is that this is just the beginning. This research, it opens up this whole new world of possibilities, and I can't wait to see where it reads.
And I can't wait to share those discoveries with our listeners. But for now, I think it's time for a little break. We'll be right back with part 3 of our deep dive into the amazing world of hepatic stellate cells and the promise of R-spondin 3. All right, so we're back, and we're ready to kind of wrap up our deep dive into this fascinating world of hepatic stellate cells and the potential of R-spondin 3. It's just so wild to me how something so tiny, so hidden away in our bodies, can have such a massive impact on our health.
It really does, make you think about the complexity of the human body, right? It's incredible. We kind of take our organs for granted, but they're really like these intricate ecosystems. All these different cell types working together in perfect harmony. And then when that balance gets disrupted, well, that's when disease sets in.
And this research is really showing us just how, super crucial these hepatic stellate cells are to keeping that balance in the liver. They're not just scar tissue factories, as we thought.
Right.
They're like the conductors of an orchestra, making sure all the different parts are working together in sync.
I love that. That's a great analogy. And what's even more exciting is that, this research is opening up a whole new way of thinking about how we treat liver disease. So instead of trying to, just eliminate these activated hepatic stellate cells, which is what many of the current therapies try to do, maybe we can find ways to nudge them back into their quiet, helpful state.
Yeah, it's like instead of silencing this entire orchestra because one section is playing out of tune,
Right.
we can actually work with a conductor to kind of bring everybody back into harmony.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, there's a much more elegant approach.
It is. And the key to that seems to lie with this R-spondin 3 molecule. And this research suggests that boosting these R-spondin 3 levels, that could be the way to restore that balance and help the liver actually heal itself.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about the potential of this research, but I think it's important to remember that it's still early days, right?
Right.
We need to see if these findings actually hold true in humans, and there's a lot more research to be done before we can start talking about actual treatments.
Absolutely. Yeah. But even if it doesn't lead to a cure for liver disease, this research is a major step forward in our understanding of how the liver works and how we might be able to treat it more effectively.
So what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners? What do we want them to remember from this deep dive?
I think the most important message is that there's always hope. Science is constantly evolving, and we're learning more about the human body, every day. And this research on these hepatic stellate cells and this R-spondin 3, this is a perfect example of that. It's challenging our assumptions, and it's giving us a new perspective on how to approach treating liver disease.
And I think it also highlights the power of curiosity. It's because scientists were curious about these seemingly insignificant cells that we've made this incredible discovery, right?
Yeah.
Who knows what other secrets our bodies are hiding, just waiting for us to uncover them.
That's a great point. And it's why we encourage all of our listeners to, to stay curious and keep asking questions. The more we learn about our bodies, the better equipped we are to take care of them.
Well said.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into this amazing world of hepatic stellate cells and R-spondin 3. It's been an incredible journey, and we hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
It's always a pleasure to share our knowledge and passion for science with our listeners.
And to you, our listener, we leave you with this. What other cellular symphonies are playing out in your own body, orchestrating the intricate dance of life? What other unsung heroes are quietly at work to keep you healthy and functioning? Keep those questions in mind, stay curious, and as always, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To-Do Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.